So welcome back, Vaibhav, for the third segment on our Going Digital series. The first two segments were absolutely exciting and amazing. You spoke about growth hacking. You spoke about personal branding. So now let's talk about the third part of what we were going to talk about, which is LinkedIn. The playbook to leverage LinkedIn. This is one of the great mysteries of humanity today, where a lot of people are on LinkedIn, millions of people on LinkedIn posting, furiously, but not really getting the results that they're looking for. So it'll be lovely to hear from you about your expertise and what experience you've had with LinkedIn and what hacks you have. Like for example, we have heard about your growth hacking masterclass on LinkedIn. Tell us about that and what do you aim to achieve through that?
So when I talk about growth hacking, right, it's actually a lot of things that we already spoke about in the last few sessions. It's the mindset of how you approach a problem. Are you doing it on an experimental level? If the experiments are there, what kind of experiments? Are you using automation? If there is automation, what kind of things are you automating? What kind of things are you doing manually? All right. If you're doing in terms of optimizations, what are the metrics that you're looking at based on which you're making these optimizations? Imagine this, right? Like imagine the North Star of you on your LinkedIn is LinkedIn growth. What are the kind of experiments that you can potentially run in terms of connecting with people, how you connect with people, touch points with people, making sure they check out your profile, the nuances of it. I'll give you an example, right? The kind of things that I talk about. So based on the experiments that I've understood that if a person is actually checking out my profile, next time I create a piece of content, LinkedIn will make sure the person sees my content. Okay. If I want to increase the views of my content, if there's anything that I could do to make people visit my profile, next time I create a piece of content, LinkedIn will make sure it will push that content to them, which will reactivate those audience. What do I mean by reactivating of audience? Let's say you don't like or engage with a piece of content 3 to 4 times continuously. LinkedIn will stop showing you that piece of content. I'm sure you must have wondered, I used to see this guy quite a lot. Nowadays, I don't see him. You don't see him not because he doesn't create content, because you stopped caring about him by not liking his content. LinkedIn thought it has become irrelevant for you and is starting showing you someone else. Now you have become inactive audience. How do I activate you? The easiest way to activate you is to make sure that you check out my profile. Right? So tactics and things like this, which are based on algorithm, right? In terms of sending out requests and sending out invitations, could you potentially automate that, but in a very smart way? Right? For example, right, let's say if I visit your profile, there's a very good chance you might visit my profile. What do I mean by that? Because the moment I visit your profile, you're like, who is this guy who visited my profile? And I'm going to check out my profile. That will lead to you checking my content out next time I post. So they're all interrelated. How do I basically in that program break down LinkedIn on every standpoint? What is the power of a like? What is the power of a comment? What is the kind of content you should create? What time that you should create content at? Do you create content based on your TG and does it change? The types. How do you send a DM? How do you design a DM so that it gets a reply? How do you follow up? How do you get email ID ethically or without asking, whatever it is? How do you build audience on top of it? Everything around whatever you could do with LinkedIn is what I teach there.
Sounds very fascinating. So if I have to ask you, as I said at the start, right, LinkedIn is a very crowded space today, right? And I mean, all kinds of people on LinkedIn. And those who are on LinkedIn all seem to be sellers of their personal brand. And the actual buying audience, so like if I look at the B2B angle here, or even the B2C angle, while people are seriously putting up content there, for their personal brand building or for, trying to attract the right audience, there is this fear that the people who are actually the buying audience may not be visiting LinkedIn unless they need to do personal branding. They don't end up on LinkedIn, and then it's a conglomeration of all people who are after building their own personal brand. What's your view on this, and how do you suggest this be tackled?
Less than 2.5% of the total audience on LinkedIn create content. So don't define who is active on LinkedIn based on the number of people, based on the content pieces that you see. Okay, that is one. Two is less than 6% of audience actually engage on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a very passive social media. What do I mean by that? It's so weird. It's just how people are. Okay. When I post a tweet on Twitter, right? The reach of the tweet is, let's say, 10,000 people, and I've got 300 likes on that. But the same post, when it goes on LinkedIn, the reach of it is like 100,000, but only 500 likes. So it's just a behavior. We are not, LinkedIn is most of a surfer platform than actually engagement platform. You're not used to like liking, you're not used to like commenting, right? The social media, the social network is not designed in a way that it actually, like pushes the user to like and comment. While on Instagram, on Facebook, we are used to doing that. We're used to double tapping to like the content, right? Just because they're not liking your content, just because you don't see them creating content, doesn't mean they're not active on LinkedIn. The LinkedIn active user, total active users of LinkedIn has 3x'd in the last 2 years, right? So they are there. They're watching you. I'll tell you one simple thing, okay?
Yeah.
I don't want to name them because they're too big of people.
Sure.
Like these are people who are running multi-billion-dollar businesses. Okay. I'm just a marketing manager at Uber and marketing head at Klook. I'm not a founder of a big billion-dollar company for them to know me, right? But many of these big leading founders, they know me by name. That is happening, but none of them actually like or comment my content, but they all know me by name. Why? Because they're passively consuming my content as well.
Okay.
So I was talking to one of the founder and he said, yeah, I know you. I've seen your content on LinkedIn and these days you're active on Twitter also. The guy is, his own worth is $2 billion or probably more. He's on LinkedIn. Find me one other social network where you'll find him. Everybody consumes. They just don't engage because they don't think they should be engaging with you, or that's not their intent at all, right? So
when we spoke about growth hacking, right? One of the experiments obviously will be LinkedIn. Okay, I would presume, especially if you're B2B, it's unavoidable.
Yeah.
Even B2C, probably a lot of B2C, LinkedIn is also seen. So do you want to just give some examples of how LinkedIn has helped you to leverage, how have you leveraged LinkedIn for this growth hacking technique?
So LinkedIn actually has, out of every social network out there, it actually has the highest paying audience. What do I mean by that? Just because of the category of people on the social network, the spend capacity of a user on LinkedIn is much higher than any other social network on the internet today, right? So like in my case, right, like one featured link on your LinkedIn profile, there's something called as a featured section. Okay. In that you can add external links. For 2 years, my LinkedIn program, which was priced at $1,400, made me around $150,000 in sales for 2 years. 100% of those sales have been attributed to one button on my LinkedIn profile, which said LinkedIn Masterclass. There you go. And how did this happen? Same that I told you. I created content. People got intrigued. They saw my content 3-4 times. They liked it. And like, who is this guy? And they go and open my LinkedIn profile and they see that, oh, this guy has got 100,000 followers. Great. Oh, he also teaches how to use LinkedIn. I should check that out. They go click on that link. They open. Out of 100 people click, 1 people buy. I make the purchase. Now flip around that and say that you're a B2B business. The way you generate lead is by booking a call. You have a Calendly link there and you're creating content around the niche or the topic that you're creating. People visit your profile acts as a landing page. In that case, if you have optimized it right, people will click on the link and book a call with you. Your call to actions are very clear on a LinkedIn profile. There's something called as featured section, which is for this.
Yes.
And that's pretty much how you could leverage LinkedIn to even generate sales. Like I've done more than, I don't know, like I can't even talk about those numbers just because of organic LinkedIn.
So other than LinkedIn, Vaibhav, which other social media platform has worked successfully, in growth hacking? Yeah.
See, again, right, my audience that I was trying to tap into was predominantly on LinkedIn initially. So I focused on that, but I always have secondary channels. So I create content on Instagram. I create content on Facebook. I sometimes create content on YouTube as well, but they're not primary sources for me. The way I go about creating content there is by picking up a piece of content that I originally created for LinkedIn, repurpose that for other social networks. Right. So for me, since I have a B2C space that I've opened up because of my programs, I leverage both Instagram and Facebook pretty well. Right now, like around 7% of my sales comes from Instagram organically. Around 23-24% of my sales organically comes from LinkedIn. Because again, if you think about it, right, my TG, a lot of them hang out both on LinkedIn and Instagram.
Got it.
So that also happens.
So we are starting from the TG and where they hang out, and that's where we.
That's essentially where you follow, right? Like that's why I said know your audience. Step number 0, not even 1, 0.
So related to this, one last question, right? I mean, yeah. So one last question for you, Vaibhav, which is Twitter. Okay, now Twitter is another channel that a lot of people use to voice their opinions, right? Their thoughts or their opinions on particular issues or on certain subjects, whatever, right? So now again, this is something which is very important for building a personal brand, and maybe a subsidiary benefit. It could also help probably in growth hacking, especially in B2C kind of scenarios. So you want to share that how does one build a personal brand on Twitter? How does one build a growth hack using Twitter? Any examples you want to share? How does one do it?
Personal brand on Twitter is, so Twitter I feel is the rawest format of content that you can put, rawest thoughts. So the way I use Twitter is like an experiment. I've focused a lot on Twitter since the last 6 months. I've grown also pretty well, right? And the beauty about Twitter is the lifespan of a piece of content, literally a few minutes or maybe hours, right? So the way I think about Twitter is when I put something on LinkedIn, I'm thinking about multiple thoughts and I pick one thought that goes on LinkedIn. But on Twitter, whatever comes right now, it's a dump there.
Yeah.
Right. And that's how Twitter works. The lifespan is so short that you keep churning. Something that works out, whatever works out, a lot of times becomes a LinkedIn post these days for me. So it has become the experimental ground for me. And the way people consume is also that, right? They don't want to spend a lot of time on a piece of content. It has to be in a line or two. They just like and move.
Correct.
Right. So that is how it is. And Twitter, the most important thing about Twitter is being authentic, because Twitter audiences they don't care who you are. On LinkedIn, there is some level of respect because you're a CXO, right? On Twitter, it's nobody's business. Like they're going to bash you left, right, and center if they don't agree with you. But on LinkedIn, they won't, because LinkedIn profile clearly says, okay, CEO XYZ. I was like, okay, fine. Let me be respectful. On Twitter, you are just a XYZ person. Nobody has the time to go and check out what you do. So make sure if you're putting out something, make sure you are standing there to go by your word, or if you're wrong, be apologetic and say that, sorry, I'm wrong. You're right. That's fine too.
Beautiful. If you're a Vaibhav Sisinty who's already got 100,000 follower base on LinkedIn, okay, or on other social channels, right? When you go on Twitter, there's a likelihood people already know you. If you're somebody who doesn't have that kind of a following and is starting out anew on Twitter, what would you say they should?
That's what I thought. Funnily enough, the audience are completely different. That's what I actually thought, right? That people would know me. Few know me, but most of them don't, which is actually a great thing because I'm opening up to a new audience. But the way I started up is, again, just pure play, authentic yourself, putting out your thoughts without actually hoping for results. I didn't get any results for 9 months straight. And that is when I slowly started to get traction. And slowly when I got traction, I understood what is working for me. And I doubled down on that, tripled down on that. So funnily enough, in last 3 months, I've grown by like 20,000 followers. I grow by, like 150 to 200 followers a day today on Twitter. The growth is faster than that I'm growing on LinkedIn.
Fantastic.
Right.
So I think that would be a good end to this discussion, Vaibhav. I would love it to go on for another hour, but I think, I don't want to stretch it because the kind of content you have shared is so brilliant, so practical, and so real. Without it's shorn of all the jargon, it's shorn of all the buffoonery that goes on in the name of marketing today. So thank you so much for this wonderful set of insights that you shared with us. Thank you for your time, and it's been an absolute pleasure to interact with you, Vaibhav. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Siddharth. Thank you so much for having me.